This is Create the Next from ProCFO Partners, where every week we explore strategies and ideas for financial management and growth to help today's businesses put their financial picture in context.
Welcome back to Create the Next. I'm Chris Bintliff, and I have Brian Fern, who's back with us today. And Brian, you've got this super cool background for those watching on the video of saving money without spending money. And just before we hit record, you had a familiar anecdote that we can all relate to. But how are you? It's great to have you back on the show. And today we're talking about kind of this idea of improving the bottom line. And you've got some great perspectives on that I'm really interested in digging into with this saving money without spending money. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much. Nice to be back. And it's definitely a topic that's near and dear to my heart as we did the expense control, did the P&L and budgeting. This is the other thing that really is very fun, that I'm fond of.
That's great. So let's lead off with this anecdote you were just sharing. When your wife walks in and says, "Hey, I'm pretty excited about what I just bought." How does that relate? Share that with us, and then, I don't know, bring that back into business.
Do you promise that she won't see this? Then I can do it.
I cannot make any promises. We can change the names and blur your face, though.
Anyhow, she'd come home and with a beautiful jacket. She said, honey, I just saved $300 in this jacket. And I'd say, well, how much did it cost me to save all this money? So unlike the things that I talk about with my clients is I'm saving money without having to spend any money. And that's a big difference.
So how do we do that? How do we manage expenses? And how do we kind of design our business initiatives, our priorities, our perspectives, so that we're thinking more about I don't know, even making money, but saving money without spending money? And is that a cost-cutting technique? Is that a revenue increasing technique? Is that a saving technique? Talk us through it.
So there's two ways to actually improve the bottom line. And when you hire salespeople, their job is to go out and bring in revenue and increase sales. A CFO, typically, that's not part of his job is to go out and increase sales, but his job is to, protect the firm's assets and do a good job in terms of keeping great books and records. And CFOs do a lot of different things, but let's just keep it to, budgeting and expense control and cash flow and doing all the things that are not related to bringing revenue. So I always had the sense that how do I help the bottom line? And it's by identifying cost savings ideas that are impactful, but most importantly, not disruptive to the business. And I identified when I was a CFO, many different things that work. And since I've sort of spent more time doing this, I've expanded the things that are optional, that can do that. So I tell the story is when you go to your at the end of the year and have your performance review, you could tell your boss you did all the audits properly and you have all the banks in order and you had great budgets and plans and forecasts and everything's in great order. But can you go to tell them and say, this is how I impact the bottom line? And it's by saving money without spending money. So I have lots of different things up my sleeve, although I don't like to call them tricks, because they're not tricks. They're actually not smoke and mirrors at all. They're actually things that you could put in place to help improve the bottom line. We can talk more about the details as we continue through the conversation.
So first of all, it's just really interesting to recalibrate our thinking around, executive leadership being thought less as overhead, less as a cost center, and more, as you say, as a profit center. How does the CFO contribute to profitability beyond feel-good, anecdotal charts and graphs? But instead, what I hear you saying is, nope, I'm going to show you the before and after, the levers that I pull and turn so that profitability increased because of my skill sets. I think that's probably a perspective most leaders should have. They should be asking that question: how am I making this company money, instead of how am I showing up with ideas that are going to be more expensive for us to carry out. But I want to get into some of your best practices that you've been able to develop to help us illustrate this.
So, one of the areas that most companies like to offer their employees is healthcare benefits. And as we know, healthcare benefits continue to go up anywhere from 5 to 7 to 9% a year. And then Some companies will pay 100% of it. That's very few, but more so companies maybe on Wall Street and private equity and what have you. But it starts going from 100% to an 80-20 split to a 70-30 split. As the expense gets higher, companies are trying to figure out, how do I not put the burden on my employees? And you maybe get a 3 to 5% raise, and you got an 8% increase in your healthcare costs. So there goes your raise. You really didn't make any money. So there's something specifically, if I'm allowed to share, called the difference card. It's a way on average to save 20% of your healthcare costs without changing what you give your employees in terms of benefits and without changing your healthcare provider. And you don't have to change brokers either. So it's not a smoke and mirrors. It's actually real. It works. I've used it as a CFO. Specifically, I was saving about $120,000 a year on healthcare costs. The company gets paid for their services 10%, so I was paying them 12%, and I was keeping $108,000. Any smart person, whether you're a CFO or not, would take that trade any day of the week.
Wow. How did you develop this? What's the process of that?
So it's not something I developed. It's a company out there called the Difference Card.
Okay.
And essentially what they do is replace a high cost premium for a lower cost premium by doing the following. They take a higher deductible plan. And you may have lots of employees. Some never see the doctor at all, and you paid a high employee plan for them. And some use the doctor all the time. Why pay for those people that actually haven't used the plan enough or met their deductibles? So we take a higher deductible, and to simplify, an example might be, let's say you have a $10 copay today. We would raise that to a $50 copay. The employee would pay the $10, and then the company would pay the extra $40. But why is that effective? Because I just reduced your fixed cost, monthly cost fund. Let's say I pay $100,000 a year down to $80,000 a year. So you have that $20,000 in savings that come off the top. How many times if employees have to go to the doctor to make up when you're paying $40 for them? Many, many times. I've seen companies save in excess of a school I was recently working with, saving in excess of $230,000 to a private school. That's real money.
It is real money. Is there, a size of organization where this becomes best suited for after you have X amount of employees or X amount of some financial metric?
Yes and no, but this specifically, you have to have at least 3 people in the plan to be effective. But these other things that I work with shipping, getting off the topic a little. If you're a self-insured plan, I have great products. That's something used for pharmaceutical savings. I have outsourced HR services. A lot of people use PEOs, super expensive PEOs. They charge anywhere from $100 to $200 per head per month. There's other ways to skin the cat. You have to understand why you're using a PEO. And by the way, if you don't know what a PEO is, a professional employee organization, which many smaller companies use, in some cases appropriately, in some cases not. A lot of people spend a lot of money on 401k services. There's a disruptor out there that I have a relationship with that can save you money on using a 401k, something you want to give your employees. A lot of people use Iron Mountain for storage. They're super expensive. They handcuff you, keeping your documents there. I have companies that will take you out of those contracts and put you into their warehouses for a lot less money and equally as secure. All the key is to have things that are not disruptive, but highly effective.
Fascinating. So you're using this word disruptive, which I really like, and it's bringing to mind for me that even in small and mid-market companies, we can get entrenched with the way things have always been, or the way things are expected to be, or I'm using a PEO because that's what we've always done, or the company I was at previously did, or I'm familiar with it because that's what our previous CEO wanted to do, or whatever. We get stuck in these lanes where we take our eyes off of that stuff and think, well, our processes and our systems and those relationships, those will take care of itself. Now let's do these other things that can be a lot heavier lifting. Increasing profitability through increased sales, for instance, is no small and easy thing, or expanding your market is no small and easy thing. You're saying, look, some of these things that might be status quo for you, there are new ways of thinking about it. There are better ways or different ways of thinking about it. And at least you should have the conversations to see if what you've been doing is what you should continue to be doing, or if you could be saving money by doing something else.
Absolutely. Because doing what we did before is not really always the great answer. It's the easy answer, but not the best answer. So it is challenging to get CFOs to spend the time to think about doing these other things because it's working. So why, if it's not broke, don't fix it, right? But if I can convince them and have them understand that they can become the profit center and they can go to their CEO and board and say, this is how I contributed, that's an awesome fact. For instance, if you have a big factory and you're using electric, you're paying PSE&G or wherever you might be, you're paying them, a monthly fee. If I can find out for you, instead of paying 13 cents a kilowatt, we can get you down to 7 cents a kilowatt by signing a 6-month contract or a year contract, depending on what's the most appealing, you're still getting electric. Why pay more for something that you're going to use anyhow? So things are just very, the things that I work on are very being used daily in the business world, but why pay more for something if you don't need to? It's just being a little creative and taking a little initiative.
I love that you use the word creative, which I've used before with our group of CFOs, and you are illustrating this unique skill set, and I want to dig into it just a little bit. Do you agree that I don't know, it takes the ability to see things from slightly 15 degrees off of center to see where these opportunities are, and not everybody's capable of that, and this is one of the advantages of having, I don't know, a multidisciplined, multi-experiential, experienced CFO who can really help you see. You just mentioned manufacturing and healthcare and all these other things. There, if you were only in one vertical or industry, you might not have this breadth of knowledge. There's a ton of value in being able to tap into somebody like you who has seen and applied these things across all these different perspectives.
Yeah, the products I use, if you have a P&L with profit and loss, you have employees, they're applicable. You may not be in shipping, but you may have electric. You may be a service-oriented company, so you need help with your copiers. You're spending too much on copiers. You might have a factory, you want to put solar energy in. You never thought about it. The value of solar energy is amazing. The tax incentives that are available, the T-Rex, as they call them, money that you get paid for creating electric. These are people you're not going to probably do these things unless someone presents them to you, because you're doing your monthly P&Ls, you're doing your closings, you may have an acquisition, you may have a bank issue. So you're not sort of thinking outside the box. When you start having people that are outside of what your daily work is come in and talk to you, I think that's when you sort of start thinking, maybe I could do that too, or maybe I should be doing that because I can help the bottom line.
And again, the value of a CFO who isn't just preparing charts and graphs for you. We've talked a lot about how that old sort of stagnant perspective is out the window, but this is energizing and invigorating and interesting and, as you said, disrupting. And that's pretty refreshing in this. I mean, we all need to be examining some of these things that we just sort of take for granted as business as usual.
Yeah. So I have to be careful about the disrupting. So we are the people that I work with are disruptors in the market, but importantly, they're not disruptive to your business.
That's a great point. Talk me through that a little bit. What does it mean to be a disruptor in the market, but not disrupting to your business?
So like the difference card, the healthcare product, it's something thinking differently, but you're still giving your employees the exact same benefit that you had today. You're still using the healthcare provider you use today. You're not telling them, oh, you can't use Blue Cross, you have to use Cigna. So that would be, employees might sort of say, oh, no, I like Blue Cross. All my doctors are there. So we're not being disruptive to the business, but we are thinking differently. 401k, a lot of people use Fidelity. If you look at the costs on Fidelity, there's a lot of ancillary costs that are incurred by, in some cases, the employee, in some cases, the employer. Well, there's a new person in the marketplace that's saying, you know what, we're going to charge you a flat fee when you do a sale. End of story, no other fees. We'll handle everything that you have. So those are the disruptors in the market, but not disruptive to the business.
Great illustration of the conceptual of what we mean, but not practical, because you're right. We certainly don't want to get ourselves into a situation where we're stalling something or there's a bunch of headaches to make things flip from here to there. And I love that you've thought through that. And that's another sort of capability I think that's necessary, is to understand the value, what's important to us as business people and as business leaders. And one of those things is continuity and business as usual when we need it to be business as usual, but bringing in some of these new solutions, these new perspectives that can help us avoid some of those entrenched habits or behaviors that could be improved, especially where profitability is concerned.
Yeah, it's all about the profitability. I mean, if you want to get big bonuses at the end of the year, I think, we pay salespeople based on their production. If there could ever be a day where they pay CFOs, if they actually become that profit center, give them a percentage of the sales, you'll see a lot more people paying attention to their bottom line. I've heard from people saying, Brian, don't talk to the CFO, but talk to the business owner because he's the one's making the money. And I'm saying that's true, but if you can get those CFOs to start going to their owners, business owners, and saying, hey, I bought $400,000 to the bottom line. I should get a bigger bonus than what you're giving me because I helped our profitability. So it's not going to happen overnight where business owners think that way. But if you can incentivize the CFOs to do things without causing harm to the business, I think that adds a lot of value.
Brian, thanks so much for joining us today. This was fascinating, and I want to have you back and just dig into one of these solutions or two of these solutions and just really get granular about how they can help our businesses.
Yeah, it'd be my pleasure. They are really, to me, they're no-brainers. I know they work. They're not smoke and mirrors. And again, they're not disruptive, and they are very effective. And with healthcare costs continuing to rise, it's a good way to go.
Thanks for joining us, Brian. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching, and a special thanks to our subscribers. Consider becoming one today. Visit ProCFOPartners.com for more strategies and ideas for financial management and growth to help you put your business's financial picture in context.